Welcome everyone to Train Tuesday. I'm your host Jim Wiggin from Athearn and so glad that you could join us. If you are joining us live on the live stream, thank you. And if you're catching us later on YouTube, thank you once again. And if you like the content that you're seeing on our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and comment. And also, thank you everyone for getting the Athearn YouTube channel to 10,000 subscribers. It's a pretty good sized milestone. So we want to thank you, our active listeners, watchers, and enjoyers of everything model train related that Athearn can bring to you. I want to see who's joining us tonight live. I see KCG Rail Gilbert is here, Ronald is here, Bruce, NSWLE, Mill Creek, George, DG Model Works is in the house, Bradley, and Donnie, just to name a few. I want to thank those who stopped by to visit the Athearn booth this past weekend at the 2025 Railroad Hobby Show. We had a great weekend. In fact, last I heard, I can't confirm the number, but it was well over 27,000 people. I believe the number was 27,550 who came to the show. If you were a part of that, thank you for joining us and got to meet some folks. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but I want to do one more round of shout outs before we get started on today's episode of Train Tuesday. Let's see, Stephen Wagner has joined us. Anthony, Are You a Slacker from Oklahoma has joined us. Terry is here. Ronald, Charles, Bruce, Anthony, and Robin. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. So glad you could join us. And tonight we're going to be talking about something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. I kind of gave that hint away last Tuesday when folks were asking about new announcements. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Athearn Genesis EMD GP7, as well as the all-new GP7L and the GP8. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with another Train Tuesday. Now, the GP7 is certainly one of my favorite locomotives, and it was the locomotive that really brought the road locomotive and the road switcher to the forefront of most railroads. This is the locomotive that almost single-handedly had taken mainline steam off the rails. Now, EMD had tried before and failed with the BL2. However, the GP7 had the right combination of utilitarianism and power to easily displace those maintenance-hungry steam locomotives. Now, EMD introduced their GP7 in 1949, and the basic design followed most diesel switchers, however, with the addition of a short hood instead of just the end cab. Now, the hoods were also full height, and this was to better accommodate the diesel engine as well as mechanical and electrical components. Now, in 1951, the U.S. Army would order the GP7L locomotive. Now, a GP7L is a GP7 equipped with the switcher-style AAR Type A switcher trucks. Now, many of these locomotives would go on to service such railroads as the Alaska Railroad and the Tennessee Valley. Years later, a lot of these Jeeps would get rebuilt, and Conrail was certainly no stranger to some rebuilds. Some of the Conrail rebuilds were built by Paducah from the famous Paducah rebuilds of the Illinois Central Gulf. Others were built at Rock Island Silva's shop. In fact, they built 20 Conrail GP7s and the GP8s in 1978. However, the ones that we're going to talk about tonight were rebuilt by Morrison Knutson's Boise shops. 13 in total GP7s were turned into GP18s in late 1978. Now, the earlier 1976 Conrail units built at Paducah were the equivalent to many of the Illinois Central rebuilds. The 1978 rebuilds, however, were engine and electrical gear only rebuilds, so there was no car body differences. That's why we're able to make these Conrail GP8s for you for the first time. Now, the locomotive that you see on your screen currently, this is Main Central 563. We offered this in the last run. I'm going to give you the part number, but these are hard to find. They sold out very quickly. Thankfully, I pre-ordered mine and I have one in my collection. The item number for this particular model is ATHG 70737. Again, it's ATHG 70737. Now they're sold out. They sold out very quickly. You may be able to find one online from one of the many retailers, or you might find it on one of those online auction sites. However, they sold out quickly. Now let's talk about what we're going to be offering for pre-order, and you're going to have until February 28th to place your pre-orders on the following items. We're going to start our journey with Rock Island. So Rock Island fans, rejoice. We're going to give you some options. Now, it can certainly be said that rail fanning the Rock Island in the final years of their operation meant someone would be watching a rainbow of schemes. Now, the Rock Island's poor financial state meant that repaints were far and few between, and quite often not standard. And we're going to show you some of these. Now, the locomotive that you have on your top of your screen is Rock Island number 441. This is based on a late 1950s era paint scheme. This is the red maroon paint scheme that was popular at the time. It's going to include standard sunshades, solid skirts. Pay attention to that because as time would go on, those skirts would either become slotted or removed altogether. That's that little part above the fuel tank. This one's going to have the Rock Island style fuel tank and sloped pilot plates. Going further down the road into the 1960s, late 1960s actually, is 1204. Now this particular model has a unique scheme featuring a dark maroon paint with pinstripes and yellow ends, kind of different. This one's also going to have Mars type headlights, slotted skirts, Rock Island style fuel tank, spark arresters, and sloped pilot plates. Now that's not all for Rock Island. We've got two more for you. If you're a fan of Prime for Time, we've got you covered with these early 1970s examples, number 1263 and 1282. Now 1263 is maroon with yellow ends and logos on the ends only. It's also going to have Mars type headlights, the slotted skirts, spark arresters, winterization hatch, and footboard pilots. Meanwhile, 1282, it's going to be maroon with yellow ends and logos not only on both ends, but the cab sides, as you can see here. It too will have a Mars type headlight, but its skirts have been cut and removed. Spark arresters, of course, winterization hatch, and of course, a footboard pilots. Now, these are prime for grime, and they definitely probably look in better shape here than they did in actuality in the early 1970s. However, keep in mind that prime for grime is the paint is faded. There is some distressed marks to the paint. We've basically given you the starting point for your weathering, and you can take it one step further. Now, Southern Railway fans, I know you're here tonight. We've got a couple of options for you as well. We're going to run two road numbers of the early 1970s Southern Railway. Their GP7 fleet remained largely intact throughout the 1970s. Some units were equipped with protective fan shrouds. Many, however, were sublettered for the various Southern subsidiaries. Now we're going to offer two road numbers, 8248 and 8297. And these will both feature 800-gallon fuel tanks, Southern style sunshades, no dynamic brakes. Their skirts have also been cut and removed, and they're going to have mixed wheel bearings. We've had a lot of requests for Seaboard Coastlines, so I hope Seaboard Coastlines this month are happy with these offerings. Let's talk about these. Now, the first one at the top of your screen is an early 1970s unit. It's number 837, and it's going to include gyro lights on both ends, extra grabs on each end, the Seaboard Coastline style fuel tank, 4-stack exhaust, and this is per Seaboard Coastline practice, the removed handbrake, removed walkway step box, and Blomberg trucks with deleted outer brake shoes. That's kind of a neat feature of these locomotives. In the middle there, we see 846. That is a late 1960s era unit, and it has the high stripe repaint scheme. Now, I want to say this is the first time we've offered this in the Athearn Genesis. Never offered this paint scheme before. It too will have gyro lights on each end, extra grabs on each end, an 800-gallon fuel tank, and removed handbrake, removed walkway step box again. This is seaboard coastline practice. And then finally, another late 1960s era unit, which is part of our Prime for Grime, is unit number 952. Now, this has got the split image scheme with the SCL yellow frame. It also has standard lights, 4-stack exhaust, and 800-gallon fuel tank. Now, for my friends on the East Coast, we did not forget you. We've got a pair of Reading locomotives for you. These are late 1960s era Reading, when Reading started painting many of their GP7s in this familiar green and yellow scheme. We're offering two road numbers here for you, number 607 and 626. There are some slight differences, however. 607 will have solid skirts still in place and an 800-gallon fuel tank, while 626 will have a slotted skirts and a 1,200-gallon fuel tank. Now it's time to start talking about the GP7L. And I want you to know before we go on that these models, these drawings, are not complete yet. We were in a rush to get these out here to you because we wanted to get these done before we left for Amherst. There is some more artwork for these that will be forthcoming in the future weeks, but we wanted to announce these exciting models for you. And we're going to start with Louisville and Nashville. Now, these units that you see on your screen now represent the 1960s into the 1970s. Now, of course, L&N merged with the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis in 1957, and their small GP7L fleet became part of the L&N, although they called them technically, by the railroad, GP7Ns. Now, they would serve the L&N for many years, lasting until the late 70s, even into the early 80s. We're offering three different road numbers here: 490, 492, and 494. Now, there are some slight differences between the three road numbers. Let's start with 490. 490 has a 5-chime forward-facing horn, and you'll notice it has a solid yellow nose. Meanwhile, 492 has both forward and reverse horns and a firecracker antenna, and 494 also has forward and reverse horns as well as a firecracker antenna. Now, there's a lot of new features for these locomotives, so let's go over these briefly. And this is for the Louisville and Nashvilles that you see on your screen presently. These have the all-new tooled AAR type A switcher trucks. Brand new tooling from Athearn. Also, not shown, but we'll show in artwork in the coming weeks, newly tooled L&N shop-built Twinkie-style spark arresters. Now, again, these aren't shown. You'll see them in a few weeks. Also, a newly tooled radiator exhaust pipe, newly tooled radiator vent pipe. Also included with these models will be the Pyle National gyro light on front end. Now, the oscillation mode or oscillation effect is in DCC mode only. These will not have, these are a non-dynamic brake hatch, 2 exhaust stacks with new spark arresters, road number specific horns, and a 1,200-gallon fuel tank. Let's talk about the United States Army next. These were quite popular. We talked about these at the show. A lot of people were excited about these. This is 1970s, but this was from an order from the United States Army to EMD back in 1951. They were used mainly at Army bases, mostly in the southeastern United States. And we're going to offer two road numbers here: 1823 and 1835. Now, these two will also include the newly tooled AAR Type A switcher trucks, also a newly tooled 800-gallon fuel tank, non-dynamic brake hatch, 2 exhaust stacks with spark arresters, and the firecracker antenna. Now, when the United States Army ordered a lot of these GP7Ls, some of them found their way up north to Alaska. And we're going to be offering Alaska as these were seen from 1960 to 1965. We're offering three road numbers. We're offering road numbers 1821, 1827, and 1836. Again, these are former United States Army units. Now, they're going to feature AAR type B switcher trucks, the newly tooled 800-gallon fuel tank, newly tooled Alaska Railroad style winterization hatch, which is not shown, but artwork will be forthcoming, non-dynamic brake hatch, 2 exhaust stacks, and of course, firecracker antennas. Let's go back to the L&N. Let's talk about the Louisville and Nashville again. However, these are patched, and this is early 1970s. Now remember, the L&N had merged with the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis back in 1957, and their small GP7L fleet became part of L&N, although, as I was saying earlier, they called them GP7Ns. Now, the L&N was not very quick to repaint some of these units, with some of them retaining this patch paint scheme that you see here for several years. And we're going to offer 3 different road numbers as they appeared in the early 1970s. Here we have 1700, 1701, and 1704. These are all going to feature the newly tooled AAR type A switcher trucks, newly tooled 800-gallon fuel tank, newly tooled spark arresters, which are not shown but will be in artwork in the next few weeks, newly tooled radiator exhaust pipe, final national gyro light on front end, and this is an effect that operates in DCC mode only, non-dynamic brake hatch, and MU hoses. Now let's go to the start, going back to the 1950s. And here we have the original Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis. This again, 1950s era. The Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis GP7Ls were delivered from EMD in the early 1950s. They were delivered with the AAR type A switcher trucks and did not come with MU capability. Remember, that was something that was common later on some of the larger railroads. There were quite a few railroads that would order EMD locomotives without MU capability. Boston and Maine was one of them with a lot of their switchers. Now we're going to offer 3 different road numbers here, 701, 702, and 703. These are going to represent exactly how they appeared in the early 1950s when they were brand new. These will include those newly tooled AAR type A switcher trucks, as well as the newly tooled 800-gallon fuel tank. The Pile National gyro light on the front end is will operate in DCC mode only, and these will include the whip antenna. Now, while you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, these are nice. A lot of these, pretty much the 50s, 60s, and 70s, maybe early 80s. There's nothing really too contemporary here, but you'd be wrong. We're going to start with the Tennessee Valley. These are 2000s era locomotives. They're former United States Army locomotives. And actually, the railroad purchased both of these locomotives from the United States Army for $250 each. You can read more about it on their website. They've got a really nice website talking about these locomotives. We're going to offer both units, 1824 and 1829. Now these 2 will have the newly tooled AAR type A switcher trucks and the 800-gallon fuel tank. They'll also include non-dynamic brake hatches and the firecracker antenna. So there you have it for the first release of GP7Ls. We tried to hit as many as possible. There's a lot of folks that were really excited about these in their announcement. But another one that got a lot of fans excited, and we really heard about it a lot at Amherst, was the Conrail GP8s. Now, remember, Conrail got Morrison Knudsen to rebuild 13 of the GP7s, and this was in late 1978. Now, the rebuilding effort was largely internal, although they did receive Morrison Knudsen building plates. The outer shell basically still looked like a GP7. Most of the work was done internally. We're going to offer 4 different road numbers for the Conrail GP8s, and this is something that we've been getting requests for a number of years, and now we can finally offer them. We're going to offer Conrail 5450 as well as 5454, and 2 more road numbers will be added, 5458 as well as 5449. So all four of these locomotives will have the Morrison-Knudsen builder plates applied to the frame. They will not have dynamic brakes. They will have the 800-gallon fuel tank. And 5450 is the only one in the group that has pilot MU hose holders. Meanwhile, 5454 is the only unit in the group that will have an all-weather window. So there you have it, GP7s, GP7Ls, and GP8s. Surely there's something in there for everybody. These GP8s lasted well into the early 90s. So if you're a 90s modeler, you might want to think about picking up some of these. If you're a Conrail modeler, you've probably been wanting one of these for a while, and now is your time to pre-order. Now let's go back to our main central unit, and let's talk about some of the features of the Genesis locomotives. First of all of them are going to have coupler cut levers, train line and MU hoses. They'll have drop steps unless otherwise noted in each locomotive, nub style walkway tread, of course, windshield wipers, lift rings, wire grab irons, windshield wipers, sander lines, roof access hatches on non-dynamic units, and that's per prototype. So take a look on the product page to make sure those features are included with the locomotive you're interested in. Of course, the bell placement and type is per prototype, and that is as well with the horns. Detailed fuel tank with fuel fillers, fuel gauges, breather pipes, and retention tanks. And most of the GP7s are going to have the Blomberg B trucks with the appropriate bearing caps. Now, GP7Ls are going to have either the newly tooled AAR Type A trucks with helical cut gears and traction motor detail, or the AAR Type B trucks with helical cut gears and traction motor details. This is all new tooling, and I can't wait to show you some of the artwork on these because we're capturing details that haven't been captured in the past. Of course, speed recorder, unless otherwise noted or shown elsewhere. And there's two varieties that you can purchase. You can purchase these with the onboard DCC decoder with Soundtrack Tsunami 2 sound, or if you like, you can also get the DCC Ready, which has a quick plug and play technology with a 21-pin NEM connector. So you can add the decoder, sound decoder of your choice. So there you have it. I already see some that I'm going to pre-order. You even got till Friday, February 28th, which, yeah, I know it's January, but trust me, if February goes as fast as January, it's going to be here before you know it. You're going to want to get these models, and you're going to want to pre-order because, again, we have tightened up our ordering. So there's not going to be as much advantage to wait. It's better to pre-order. So there you have it. Let's see what kind of questions we've got in the audience for any of these models. Southwest says, I want a Conrail patch job. Well, GP8s, that's pretty cool. Let's see what else we've got here. Bruce says, nice models. Thank you, Bruce. Anthony's all about the Conrail. Let's see. Jason writes in and says, Jim, Rock Island 1263 will work for the Truesville Southern. Just patch out the logo. Southern is great. TVRM is a major negative. Also, Southern converted most of their GP7, GP9 fleet into slug for their switchers. Yes, they did in their later years. Canadian loan. I'm tongue-tied after talking all weekend, everybody. I'm sorry. Thank you for the after-hour streams. We really appreciate it. Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoy it almost as much as when I get to do a show and meet you guys. Let's see. Glenn says, thank you for doing the Conrail GP8s. You bet. That was product development, looking at that Athearn product suggestion email that I talk about every week. They looked at it, and there were a lot of requests for the Conrail GP8. So we're more than happy to offer those for you. Let's see. Ted says, thank you for the awesome variety. You are welcome. Well, let's see what else we've got. Athearn has not discussed about talking about the wheels. What Anthony is, or what Derek is asking about is some manufacturers have applied a subtle brown, rail brown to the wheels, so they're not so unscale like. We haven't thought about really doing that, but it's not something that we're going to say no to. We can always look into it. The biggest thing is we just want to make sure that we can get these models delivered to you at a reasonable cost. Let's see. Sid says he saw some NSC 6400s at Amherst. We'll talk about that in a minute, Sid, so stick around. Yes, we did. In fact, they were the ones with the torpedo tubes, long hood forward New York Centrals. We announced those, I believe, last summer. But you can go to athearn.com and look at the announcements archive tab. The web team is finally working on that. So 2023, 2024 is looking pretty good. 2022, they still got some work to do, and they tell me that they're going to continue working on those archives. So you can take a look there. Good question. Could a run of EL GP7s without dynamics be considered for the next run? It's definitely something we could look into. You can send us an email at athearn-product-suggestions@athearn.com. And if we get enough requests for that particular paint scheme, then it is possible we can do that. Do the Army GP7s have any DoD markings? Well, please consider that most of the artwork is somewhat early. We're hoping to get completed and finished artwork for all of the GP7Ls within this month. And when we do, we'll update on social media. Greg says the SCL units are appreciated, especially when modeling the mid 1970s and before the road rebuilt all their GP7 units into GP16 units. You are welcome. Michael, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. Let's see. What other question do we have? Railfan, good stuff. Please go ahead and use our email. The Athearn-product suggestions at athearn.com. Jason says, I'm shocked that you didn't do the NC and STL 710 Amtrak 772 that is restored. I got to help and restore and operate it back in my museum days. That's cool. Well, we didn't do it this time, but that doesn't mean we don't do it next time. Let's see what else we got here. Lots of good comments tonight. Christopher says, hope you had fun at Amherst. I did. What's the scoop of the California Surfliner cars for those who couldn't attend? We're going to talk about that in a minute. We've got some exciting news about that. Let's see. DG Model Works with a keen ear said, did I hear helical gears? That's a huge upgrade. Yes, you did. You did. And not only that, I'm excited to, hopefully the artists are getting done with the artwork. Now, one thing I do want to let you know too is we are headed into Chinese New Year, so our factories will be closed for a couple of weeks, and that's everything from production to artwork and things of that nature. We do a lot of the artwork here, but we go back and forth with our factory overseas. So it might be a little bit later, but I can guarantee you this. All of the mechanical aspects of this design have been done. It's just a matter of getting it into an art form that you guys can look at and appreciate. And so we're going to hopefully have that sometime in February, maybe March. But yeah, there's a lot of detail. John was telling me at the Amherst show all the work that was put into these new trucks, and they're going to be amazing. I can't wait to see them. All right. Any updates on the Amtrak Surfliner coaches? Well, I do have some updates for you. We'll get into that in just a second. No, no Chessie this time. Sorry. Charles, I know you were going to ask this. Any plans of GP7s and LNN and GP7s and N scale? You know, the funny thing is, we had a lot of folks asking for GP7s and GP9s and N scale at Amherst, and I'm not sure why. I can honestly say there is another manufacturer that makes a fine N scale Jeep 7 and Jeep 9, but you know, a lot of that fell on our product developers' ears, and we are listening, so maybe it's time for us to think about it. I can't promise anything, but we do listen to what our fellow modelers say at shows, as well as these live feeds and our social media, so you never know. All right, one more question, and we're going to go on to some fun stuff real quick. Let's see. You're killing my bank account this year. Maybe my bank might issue a restraining order against me from purchasing Athearn products. I hear you. I hear you. I know my NCO collection is growing thanks to the F89s and the new 45-foot trailers that are, I think, on their way to dealers now. I think we're still waiting to see when those are going to ship. We showed those at the show. Very impressive. We talked about them last week on Train Tuesday. And yeah, some weeks I wonder if I have a paycheck. Anthony, that is not true. We do care. We're modelers. I know you probably hear me say that all the time, but a lot of these guys follow me on my personal um, social media as well as our other product developers. And trust me, all of us are working on stuff. So yeah, we do care. We care because we want to make sure that we're making things that you will purchase. If we were to make everything that Jim wanted or Janik wanted or John wanted, well, we'd probably get a few, but not as much as we'd like out there. All right. Well, let's talk about some fun stuff because, like I said, I was at Amherst this past week, the big one, the as we call it in New England. Yeah, trains are actually, Randall says, eating is for the weak. Trains are more important. Well, that is true, and trains are healthier, much healthier. So here's just a few pictures. Now, I do want to stress that the pictures I'm going to show you, these are from a cell phone. These are not from our professional photographer that does the amazing photography for Athearn. So bear with me. But for those of you, I know a lot of you guys that watch this, maybe on YouTube later, you're not part of social media. And so I wanted to share these pictures with you so you could kind of see what was going on at the show. So here's our very own John Stackpole. He is our lead developer, and I got a really bad picture of him because his eyes are closed. Trust me, he's not sleeping. In fact, it's a well-known fact that John Stackpole does not sleep. He is constantly innovating and coming up with products, and that stuff on the table behind him, that was all the stuff that he brought to the show. I basically set up a table, gave him some signage and said, John, this is your sandbox, play in it. And thankfully, all weekend long, he had a great time interacting with you guys. And here's a couple of things. So there's the drop down chassis that he's been working on along with the fluid container. Again, pictures can't do this model justice. It is, I'm buying a bunch of them. They're really cool. What he's trying to show here is there's two setup modes. There's one for when the container is actually in transport, and one when it's tilted, when it's actually being used. Then we've got the 26Os there up in the upper right-hand corner. We brought a couple of samples of those. Those are still on track to be here probably in December of this year, so a little bit later. And I'm going to move myself out of the picture too so you can see more details in a moment, but I'm just going to explain these pictures. The next picture, you can see the trash gons. The trash gons, these are a little rough because John has taken them to other places like prototype meets and things of that nature, but he wanted to bring them to the show to let you know what's going on. Here you can see he's got the removable fiberglass top, and also you can see the trash load. Now you can't really see it in this picture because it's really small, but you can see that trash detail off to the side from that one gondola. Those are tiered, so you can cut those and you can make the height of the debris in your car as high as you like. It's a really neat feature that John thought of. And also, when I move my picture here, you'll see that there's also a new Bethgon and N scale. And then finally, that last picture, we've got a DT&I GP40-2. These are with the new lighting features such as number boards and classification lights. That DTI has got a new detail, and the fact of how the strobe is located on top of the cab, that's all new tooling. It was very impressive. We're hoping to see those around July as well. And then we've got the SD90s and the SD89 seen there in the middle. Those are also, we're hoping to try to get those out by summer. So let me remove myself real quick so you can see, and then we'll go on to the next picture. All right, N scale guys, we did not forget you. At least at Amherst, we didn't. We brought a lot of stuff that was coming, and John also brought some more projects that he's working on. Here, we've got the acid tank cars. These are the 13K acid tank cars. These are very close. I think we have a delivery date of May. I am anxiously awaiting all of the ones that I pre-ordered. I know you are as well. Remember, these are the most detailed acid tank cars, are probably the most detailed tank cars in N scale alone, and another industry first is they have double shelf knuckle couplers. You can kind of see in the background there the CA11 prototype that he's been working on. We don't have a date on that yet, but it's going to probably be next winter 2026. Upper right hand corner, we've got the Denver and Rio Grande caboose that he's been working on. Now, one thing that I did want to relay, and I believe John told me this is kind of a mismatch of parts. This is not one Denver Rio Grande caboose, but it's kind of a conglomeration of parts. He wanted to get this put together so we had something to show. Of course, we announced these last summer. And you can probably see it in the corner of that picture, and see if I can point to it. Yeah, right there, right by my Boston Main sign. You can see the all new part of the scenic cabooses that we announced a couple of years back, the LED sign. This is so cool. It's HO scale. You've got those little LED lights on the arrow, just like you'd see if you were driving down the road and see some kind of advertisement. And then you've also got lights inside, and it's going to come with signs, and it's also going to come with material so you can make your own signs. So if you want to say Rogers Pizzeria, you can print that out and put that on there. It's a really cool sign. One thing to note too is the way these are being wired, they are compatible with Walther's Just Plug lighting series. So you don't have to worry about being an electrical genius. You can just simply pick this up and plug it into one of those Just Plug by Walthers. And then last, we got the FP7s. These are going to be in probably, I'd say midsummer. So I'm going to remove myself again so you can see that really cool sign. And last but not least, the crew. If you don't know who these guys are, let me formally introduce you to the awesome crew, part of the awesome crew of Athearn. In the very front, my left, I guess your right, depending on how you're looking at it, that guy with a big toothy smile, that is Mark Williams. He is the category manager Basically, what Mark does is he herds kittens, means he takes care of things that I'm working on. He also tracks stuff that John and Janik are working on, and all the other guys in product development, as well as the artists. He's also our manager to work with management at Horizon and basically tries to get as much done as possible. The guy, again, doesn't sleep. He's a very busy man, and I count it a privilege to work for someone like him. He has a passion for model railroading. He has both HO and N scale, although he probably spends a little bit more time in HO. And he is a member of an HO scale club in Kentucky. And we're pleased to have Mark as our leader. In the middle there, the handsome young man there is John. He's our lead product developer, John Stackpole. He is an N scale and HO scale enthusiast, has a designing background, an engineering background, and he has a passion for not only enjoying the hobby, but finding new ways to enjoy it, which means a lot of the innovation you see at Athearn is directly responsible from him. He's done a lot of great stuff for us, and really looking forward to seeing what else he develops. Then the gentleman on the end, that is Robert Kenderdine. Robert has been with us for a couple of years now. Interesting note about Robert was back in, I believe it was 2022 at the Amherst show, we were actively looking to add a product developer to our ranks. And Robert's friend, Ken, happened to see the sign in our booth. And Ken said, "Hey, Robert, check this out. You should sign up for this. You should do this." Now, Robert's background is he's one of the founding members of Stewart Hobbies. If you're as old as I am or older, you probably know that name. Well, Robert did sign up and he did get the job, and he is the man that is responsible for the Harriman postal cars that we've been talking about the last few months. Not only that, but Ken actually helped out at the booth as well. Even though Ken is not an official member of the Athearn team, he became one over the weekend and helped us with the booth setup, cleaning, and answering questions. And then finally, there's a short guy in the front. I have no idea who that is. We just put a shirt on him and said, "Look good for the picture." And of course, no, I'm being silly. That's myself. And yes, I am that short. It's a lot easier to get into cars when you're this short. So there it is. Athearn wants to thank you. Without you, none of this would be possible. And we had a great time at Amherst. And so with that, let's see what kind of questions you all have. Stephen says, "Yeah, I remember Robert Kennedine from Stewart Hobbies. Yeah, Robert and I had some great stories we passed back and forth. Robert's been going to Amherst for even more years than I have." Let's see. Anthony wants to know, "Hey, Jim, I want to know about those Beats gondolas and the trash gondola. When are they coming out and what roads?" I can't remember the roads off the top of my head. When are they coming out? We're hoping to get those out later in the fall, early winter. Now, one thing we did not talk about, and we did have them at the show, but John was very cautious about showing them because the prototype samples that we had were extremely banged up from well, from getting to the show for one thing. The Surfliners and the California cars. We've got some exciting updates about both of those projects, and we're aiming for mid to late summer to have those done. We've got some design hurdles that we finally accomplished, and John told me at the show he's hoping to have some painted samples sometime in February or March. Now, you can be sure that as soon as John has those, he's going to take some pictures, send them to me, and we're going to throw them up there on social media. I can't wait because even the samples that he had, even though they're early production sample or not even production, early test samples, they look absolutely beautiful. So that's the good news about the Surfliners and California cars. I know we've all been waiting for these. Again, we're trying like crazy to get those out by this summer. Let's see what questions you have. Stephen is asking about a high-tech new industrial switcher built by a small firm in South Carolina. Yes, the Republic RX 500. John has officially put that on hold for a little bit. Trust me, he's pretty deep into it, but we want to get these California cars and Surfliner cars done. And then the next big thing is the NSC cars. We're rounding towards the clearing here, and we want to get those out. As soon as those major projects are finally done, John's going to jump right back onto the RX 500. Let's see. Dan is asking about 38-2's announced early spring 2024 Seaboard system patch. Those are further down the line. The 38-2s, the first ones with the lighting features, I actually had at the show, and those will be shipping in a week or so, I think. The ones that you're talking about, you're probably gonna have to wait until early winter. I'm sorry, late winter 2026 before those come out. Hey Jim, any word on the GP7s that were announced last year? I have two of the BN ones with the torpedo tubes on order. Yeah, same thing. If it was last year, you're probably looking at spring of 2026. We're slowly trying to get back to that 18-month lead time. I think I've mentioned it before, but we have talked to the factory. We've worked on some things. We've even talked with Soundtracks and tried to find ways to maximize the time, and that way you don't have to wait as long. So keep in touch. Stay tuned. Let's see what else we've got. So let's go ahead. Mike Reed's got this elephant in the room. Why Soundtracks and not Loke Sound? So I'll be honest with you, both decoders are excellent manufacturers. It's just like anything else in the world. Is it Toyota or Honda? Is it Ford? Is it Chevy? Is it Polaris or Articat? Well, it can't be Articat anymore because they're going out of business. But anyways, the reason why we chose Soundtracks, a couple of reasons. One, their decoders are made here in the United States. They're made under high quality conditions, and each decoder that is made for a Genesis or an Athearn locomotive, whether it be a Tsunami 2 or an Economy, they're made custom for Athearn. We have them design our decoders custom for our models, and they're made right here in Colorado, and then they're shipped to our factories overseas and installed. I can't say that about the other manufacturers, but I can tell you that about Soundtracks. I've been using Soundtracks now for about 5 years. I've been very happy with them. I've also been happy with other decoders, but that is just one of the reasons why we chose Soundtracks. They're also a very easy to use decoder. And one of the biggest reasons I like Soundtracks, and Athearn likes Soundtracks for that matter, is customer service. You can have the best product in the world, but if you don't have good customer service, well, you're just not going to get very far. The nice thing about Soundtracks is they always have knowledgeable people on staff that are willing to help you. And so those were just some of the reasons why Athearn chose Soundtracks. All right, a couple of more questions, and I'm going to let you get back to it. JD says, I noticed there was no RX 500 on that table behind John. Hopefully development is still moving along. It is. It really is. He's hoping to have something as soon as the Surfliner and California cars and NSC cars are done. Sid wants to know, what DCC system do you use? I personally use NCE, and most of the guys on Team Athearn use that. We typically use NCE at the shows too. Now, that's not to say that NCE is the best and end all in a DCC system. One of the things, if you're new to DCC and you don't know which system to get, take a look around and see what kind of support you can get. Now, for me, being where I'm at in central Illinois, and even when I'm home in New Hampshire, I had a lot more support on the NCE program uh, models. But where you're at, Digitrax maybe, or MRC, it just depends. So just kind of see where you can get really good support, and that's usually through your local dealer if you've got one. And it's just like anything else. People will have preferences. People will prefer one over the other for many different reasons. Before you make the plunge, just go ahead and ask maybe your club mates or your friends of what they see. Oh, never say never. Never say never. Typing to see if you ever read my comments. I watch and I ask questions all the time, and you never read them. Are you ever going to make a B32-8 and HO round cab version? So a couple of things. Phlox. Is that like the dude from Star Trek? I'm not sure. A couple of things. I can't always see all of the questions as they're coming because this is live. We're doing it live. And if I'm moving screens and if I'm looking at things, I may miss yours. So again, please do not take that personally. If I had enough time, I'd answer as many questions as possible. But we try to keep these live feeds at about 30 minutes, and already we're almost an hour. So I'm sorry if you think I'm forgetting you, but this time I answered your question. Now, to go on to your next question, there are no immediate plans that I know of us making that. Keep in mind that product development looks at the Athearn product suggestion email, and they will make determinations on new projects, road names, paint schemes, and things of that nature on an annual basis based on the kind of feedback that they get. Now, if there's a certain type of locomotive or freight car that we get more requests for than any other, then we will typically make room for it in the new year. And the NSC cars is no exception. The Surfliners, California cars, all of those came from product suggestion emails. All right, let's do one more question, and then I'm going to let you guys get out and do some model railroading. Let's see. Can't wait for the Surfliners. Yeah, neither can I. I have no business buying one of those, but I'm still gonna buy some. Flox just got back. I know. I'm just kidding, buddy. I just wanted to make sure you knew I wasn't actively trying to not answer your question because it does happen. I miss them, and it's no shade on anybody. It's just sometimes they come quick. All right, so with that, I'm going to let you guys get back to some modeling. And now that Amherst is over, man, I had such a great time at Amherst. Got to hang out with the folks at Soundtracks. That was fun. And I got to meet a lot of great people that are probably even on this live. Let's see, Ronald. I met Ronald, talked to him. Actually met him last year and got to talk with him again. It's always fun to see folks that come back, and it's like getting back together with some old friends. I saw Joey from Late Night Model Railroading. He talked with me for quite a bit. And man, there's more, I'm sure, but since I'm a guy, I'm horrible with names. I can remember things about locomotives, but I can't remember people's names. That's why they give me a name tag when I work a booth. But there it is for you. If I didn't see you at Amherst, hopefully I'll see you this summer. We're going to be at we're going to be in Dutchland, Nebraska for the 25th anniversary Spring Creek Train Show. And then just 2 weeks after that, I'm going to be in Novi, Michigan, and we're going to be talking about the Nationals. That's going to be a great show too. So, and who knows, I may do a show here and there in between. You never know where you might find me. But there you have all the good stuff. So with that, I want to have everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Good night, everyone.